And welcome back to welcome to the second half of the season, starting off the new year of 2025, the first episode of 2025. I hope everyone had a good winter break, Christmas, New Year's. As Susan and I, we were originally gonna record this like in person instead of like the normal Zoom calls we usually hear, but right now our weather here in Texas has been a bit unsafe for road travel, so we're doing what we usually do, which is all right, because yeah, anyway, guys, I actually have a new microphone that I'm trying out today. So if I don't like how it sounds, it's going back. And well, actually, I don't even think I have the receipt. I better find that first before, but I mean, things are going good so far. What today we're actually going to be talking about we are, but we also entirely aren't at the same time. So Jesus and I during the winter break before we actually started recording this, we saw Nosferatu, and then we saw The Wolfman or Wolfman. These aren't really about like what we normally do, which is like what we thought of the movie and breaking down the plots of both films. There's something different for today's episode that we normally don't do. I don't think I've ever done this if I can try to remember. So for today's episode, okay, let's talk about Nosferatu real quick before we actually get into what today's episode is actually about. So, Nosferatu, made by Robert Eggers. It's actually the first Robert Eggers movie not to have the feature "the" in the title, so it's not the Nosferatu. But anyway, Nosferatu obviously is a remake of the classic 1922 German film by F.W. Murnau. And the original 1922 movie is an unofficial adaptation, or I can't think of the word. It's like an official but unofficial adaptation
Like a
of,
parody.
I guess you could say, parody of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But for those that don't know the story, this because the movie was made years after Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula. After he passed away, F.W. Murnau, the director of the original Nosferatu, wanted to do an adaptation of Dracula, but his wife said, Bram Stoker's widow said, that she doesn't want that to happen. So what F.W. Murnau did was created kind of, I guess, like a loophole or a workaround towards like, it's the similar story, but they have different characters, but it's still technically the same story. Count Dracula is obviously Count Orlok. Jonathan and Mina Harker are turned to Thomas and Ellen Hutter. The original, I don't think actually had a real version of Van Helsing as far as I can remember. But in the Eggers version, Willem Dafoe plays like the Van Helsing type character was in that movie. And then instead of Renfield, we have Knock. But it's pretty much the same story if you want to know. So it's like Thomas slash Jonathan gets a notification because in the our main character, either you're gonna go with Thomas or Jonathan, works for a real estate firm, and they also work internationally, which I didn't even think was a thing back then. Because I always thought like real estate, back whatever country you lived in back in the, I don't know, 1800s, you're stuck in the town or place that you're in. So how it goes is usually like Tom or Jonathan, depending on how you're reading it, because they're the same story. Literally, they are the exact same story. They're told that there's a wealthy person that is selling his castle in the Carpathian Mountains of Transylvania. And when he travels to Transylvania, the locals are fear of the Count, either Count Orlok or Count Dracula, whichever one. They fear the Count that inhabits the Carpathian Mountain. And obviously, he ignores, again, if we're referring to Jonathan or Thomas, he ignores the warnings and he goes and he meets the Count. And I'm just going to be referred to as the Count because we're talking about either Count Orlok or Count Dracula. They're the same character. A little side note, so like Max Schreck, who I guess you could say is the original actor to play Dracula, though technically it's Orlok, but everyone obviously goes to Bela Lugosi because he's the famous actor to ever play Dracula. Bill Skarsgård, who came out in this remake, is very like how what's the word? Unrecognizable. I can actually go into spoilers on this one. This movie's been out for pretty much over a month. We know we like the face has already been shown. Everybody already knows what he looks like now. Luckily for me and for Jesus, we saw this movie I think 2 or 3 days after it was released. And nobody, as far as I can tell, nobody at that time has released the face of Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, which I'm glad. Like I wanted to be surprised. Like I didn't want to know what he looked like. All I know is it's basically like obviously Bill Skarsgård's face in this movie. He has a mustache. The mustache has actually been mixed upon fans releases. Some people actually liked it because in the original book of Dracula, Dracula is said to have a mustache. So I think that's what Eggers is going with. And I thought like it was gonna look a little bit similar to the OG Count Orlok, but I think if you know anything about Robert Eggers, as I mentioned on the podcast before, Robert Eggers is someone who prefers authenticity over pretty much anything. So if you're thinking like Count Orlok looks so ugly in this movie, it's because he's supposed to look like what a vampire is supposed to look like, which is a corpse that sucks on or that feeds on blood. That's pretty much how it is. And then pretty much how in the story as always goes, Jonathan or Thomas, as soon as the deals were made, he's stuck in the castle being like a prisoner. And then that's as far as I can tell where the stories are similar. Everything after that, it changes a bit. So like it goes from Thomas's perspective. So I'm gonna stick with the Thomas thing because I know this part gets confusing. As I said, F.W. Murnau, made an unofficial adaptation, had to change the characters' names. So at this point, Count Orlok is heading towards Germany, as well as in the book, as well as in every other adaptation, he goes to England. And there's always this thing that they said that the coffin cannot be moved because the coffin must remain in the dirt. And he found a loophole. He filled the coffin with dirt and was able to travel. Obviously, there's a movie that came out. I think like 2 years ago called The Voyage of the Demeter, which is like the one single chapter of the Book of Dracula into a full adaptation of the movie. But it ends the original Nosferatu, or not the original, but the remake kind of ends the same way as the original did because Lily Rose Depp, who played Ellen in the movie, it's pretty much about her. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more like what's characteristics or oh man, what's the word I'm looking for? Something about the character. Dang, I cannot think of the word where like you get to know the character a lot more. I don't know. It's flowing through my head right now, but you know about the character pretty much a lot more than that. Character story, I guess you can say. There's a lot more to the story of the newer version than there is to the older version. But to cut it all short, just as Ellen Hutter in the original tricks Count Orlok to her room and has her feast on her till she dies, until the sunrise, because the sunrise kills the vampires. That's pretty much what it does here. But here it's like I kind of like what Eggers did with this one because it made it seem like it's almost like, oh man, what's the word called, a consummation of marriage, where like in traditional sense we've always been told that like a man or a woman saves their virginity until marriage. And obviously Lily Rose Depp's character, which is Ellen, and Thomas Hutter are already married, but this is almost seems like a remarriage between Count Orlok and Ellen. And as in this version, it is again, like I said, like a consummation, but it's still the same way. Like she tricks Count Orlok into like feeding on her until the sunrise, which obviously kills her. I mean, there's a lot more new adaptations to this version, but that's pretty much it. But as for my thought of the movie, it's definitely not one of my favorites of the Eggers movie. It's not bad. I don't want people to think that like I hate this movie. It's not a bad movie. I mean, it's well shot. The cinematography is actually really good. Production design, as we've mentioned before, the makeup, or I don't even think we mentioned it before, but like the makeup is actually really good. It's just that it's like it's hard to get behind a remake, even when it's like over 100-year-old film. Even though also this 100-year-old film was also remade beforehand back in the 70s with Herzog. I think that's is that okay? Who was the director of the 70s version again?
Warner Herzog.
Warner Herzog. Okay, yeah. The thing is, the Warner Herzog version, what's the word I'm looking for? It's still called Nosferatu, but everybody's names is actually switched back. So, and if you ever watch the 70s version, they're not the vampire is actually called Dracula this time around. And same thing for the other characters. They're not the Hutters. They're still back as the Harkers and stuff like that. I don't know. I haven't seen that one, so I don't know if there is a Van Helsing person in that one, but that's pretty much my thought. I don't hate the movie. It's as far as I can tell you, it's like it's still in the low ranking for me personally. Like I said, I didn't hate the movie. It's just not one I'd go back to, but it's still like the same story that we've pretty much known. I haven't seen the original in such a long time, but I've seen it a couple of times to pretty much remember the story. But I mean, what were your thoughts before we can talk about more about the Dracula side because there's more to that as well.
I really did enjoy everything. It's like it's almost like with Nosferatu, at least this version, is simply like as always pays homage to the originals and the ones that came before it. I feel like every single iteration has something that stands out. Like, I mean, the original is the original, of course, and I mean, there's just no way that like the one scene as he's the most infamous scene everybody always remembers is when he's creeping up the stairs to Ellen's room. It's the fact that I mean I think Robert tried doing it. I think he did. I actually don't remember if that scene was actually put into the film. But if he didn't, then it's the same thing like Werner Herzog because I know Werner Herzog. I've only seen that film once, but I do faintly remember that he never included that scene because he said later on in interviews somewhere on the lines like there's just no way he could remake that scene. Like that scene is just like it's one of a kind. There's no way you can do that. So that's why he chose to not remake it in his version. And then I guess Eggers again, somebody correct me, but I mean I don't remember him actually recreating that scene. Maybe he did, but it was in his way of doing it. So to speak. But yeah, I mean it's just great because every single iteration has its own thing that makes it stand out from the rest. Personally, I think out of the three, besides Max Shrek, I mean, we can't compare the other two films with Max because Max never talks. I mean, it was a silent film. So if the if the movie came out, say when the talkies were a thing, maybe we could compare it to all the other voices. But as far as we know, I still think, in my opinion, I still think Werner Herzog's at least the person that portrayed him, his name's I think the actor's name was Klaus Kinski. I think he still has it better than Bill Skarsgård. Not to put him in any pedestal or anything, but they're both really good. Just to put it that way, they're fantastic in their role. I just still prefer Klaus, just maybe because of his history and. If you, I'm gonna tell you, man. I want to sidetrack a little bit, like little side point. But if you've never seen a Werner Herzog film, you really need to get on it. It's just like his stuff is just works of art, man. It's like you're sitting there, and you know how, even though again, side tangent, the lens is like a work of art for him. He uses everything from the environment. He has to make everything look as exceptionally well. That's what something that Robert Eggers I think did exceptionally well and even mastered it because obviously the one scene that I think stood out of everything was when Thomas is first introduced to Orlok, but really it's just that his carriage is being brought to him. Like if it's the carriage of death, like if he's being brought to his own grave in the forest. That was just amazing. Like I honestly could not. I don't know. I don't even know how that was done, but it's just amazing. But that's what I'm trying to say. Like there's always comparisons that you can make with all the other films, and it's just to know that every single film, even if the previous one is just a remake of the original, every one of them has something that makes them stand out.
Yeah, and as far as I can say the iconic shock, I kind of tried to do that I did when we did our silent film insane, which is still free on YouTube if you guys want to go check that out. But as for that iconic shot in Eggers, the only thing I can think of would probably be like the night scene where like you just see the shadow of Orlok's hand reaching over the city. That's the only thing I think that could come close to it. But yeah, everyone pretty much all three actors. I mean, I haven't really seen 70, so I can't compare, but like Max Shrek, he was again the first like vampire portrayal, and yeah, and as for Bill Skarsgård, he had to do some research because, like we said, Robert Eggers prefers authenticity over what the fans think. So he had to do something different. Obviously, as we've mentioned the mustaching, because remember, as I mentioned in the book, Dracula has a mustache because Dracula is supposed to be a resemblance of Vlad the Impaler, who was a I guess you could say a tyrant back in I forgot what it's called. It's not the Byzantine Empire, but it's coming close to the Byzantine Empire. You guys get a little history today. Yeah, they want to do something different, like I guess in a way of something you've never really seen in a vampire film or a betrayal of a vampire, which again I commend for because like Bill Skarsgård had to do some research on like how to talk, so he learned how to talk with the Mongolian throat singing, and then had to speak with a Hungarian, I guess, a Hungarian accent. So it's like that infamous like. So there was a leaked scene where if you don't remember, it's like in the movie where Thomas already signs everything within the deal, and he said he wants to go home, and Orlok says like, well, it's kind of bad out there, so maybe we should stay here. Apparently that was leaked, but fortunate for me, I was working, so I've never really had time to look at that scene. Which again, if I heard that voice before I ever saw the movie, I could have already pictured what I'm about to see. Which to me, I felt like I'm glad I didn't. Like I wanted to go in blind, not knowing what Orlok sounded like, and obviously what he looked like. But you know, it was something different. Like I commend Skarsgård for, because if you remember, the voice is very deep and it's very creepy. Like you remember, like Thomas was scared of him inside. He goes like, "Yeah, yes, Count Orlok," and Orlok just goes, "Your lord," and he's like, what? He's like, you shall address me as your lord. And just from hearing that, that just lets you know Count Orlok is somebody you don't want to mess with. Because, I mean, yes, you're in somebody's house and they demand respect for you to call them like in a higher position. Because remember, in this movie, he's seen as like a Hungarian nobleman from the 1600s. So he technically has like a higher authority for somebody to call him what he has to be called. You know what I mean? So if he doesn't want you to be called Count Orlok, and he wants you to call him Lord or my Lord or Lord Orlok, that's what he expects. But also, let's not forget, he's a vampire, so who knows what he could have done. But and it's different because like in the original 1922 version, and I know that in the remake it doesn't do that, but how this new version went is that like okay, so this new version and the original version, Count Orlok doesn't turn anybody into vampires, but he drinks the blood. But I heard like in the 70s version, that's kind of the opposite. He does turn somebody into a vampire, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I know for sure. But like I said, something new, something different. Well, I wouldn't say new as because remember, this is a traditional sense of what a vampire should look like. Because Dracula's been interpreted differently throughout the ages. Actually, the only one that comes close to like what Dracula is supposed to look like is Gary Oldman. So for those that don't know, the Francis Ford Coppola, you know, the director of the Godfather trilogy and the recently critically acclaimed Megalopolis. Okay, I'm joking there, but he directed a Dracula movie, but it's a lot similar to the book. And even well, I'm pretty sure you must have already seen the like Gary Oldman as Dracula in his vampire form. But like Dracula in this movie is a lot more of a master of disguise, and he actually has a mustache, so it kind of counts. But the book, I mean, but the movie does have some similarities to the book. So like Keanu Reeves' character, which again is Jonathan Harker, you just hear voiceover from him. Well, that's because in the book of Dracula comes from different perspectives. So you get a first person perspective, which is basically like a character from the book is telling you the story, and then third person, which somebody or okay, how do I say this? Third person is basically like how you read a normal book. Like he said, this person said. You know how you read a normal book versus first person, which is, you know, the character in the book is the one giving the narrator, whereas the third person you are the narrator of the book. So it goes from back and forth to that. And it ends similar. So the book obviously ends a lot different from how it originally does. Because in the book, yes, Mina, just like Ellen, is under the trance of Count Dracula. But the thing is that Dracula is being chased out of London and back to Transylvania, but he still has Mina Harker under his curse. So the only way to break that curse is to kill Dracula. So once when they all found Dracula in Transylvania, they opened his coffin and they plunged a stake into him, and he turns to dust and thus freeing the curse. That's usually how the story went, and it kind of and the Gary Oldman version, the Francis Ford Coppola version, doesn't really. It kind of ends that way, but also doesn't. Like it's weird to say. So it's like Winona Ryder, who played Mina in the movie, is and isn't part of the trance at the exact same time. But rather than turning to dust, Mina just like cuts off his head and thus he dies. Yeah, and then like obviously the Bela Lugosi version is a lot different from the book because like in the book it's actually Renfield who's making the deal with Dracula. Like he's the one that travels to Transylvania and is warned about like the by the townsfolk about Dracula and all that. And then that's when actually Renfield's like sanity starts going down. Same thing with Knock, except in the original, like you could already tell Knock's not really a good guy. And then the remake, Knock, or I think he's pronounced Canuck actually in the remake. He seems like a good guy, but then you just start to notice in another scene. Yeah, he's not such of a good guy after all. But as I was going back to it before I was tangenting, Renfield is more of like the Jonathan Harker in the first half of the movie, and then we actually get to Jonathan and Mina Harker later when Dracula goes to London, and then that's when of course we're introduced to all these other characters. But yeah, if you ever want to like watch any of them, like if you've watched Nosferatu and you liked it, the recent one I'm talking about. If you like that version, then yeah, if you didn't, I understand because a lot of people who didn't like that movie clearly did not. I know they didn't know that this was a remake. That's what I know. And they also have never seen anything from Robert Eggers because remember, Robert Eggers mainly worked with A24, which was like, a very indie distributor. But, I like Robert Eggers as director. I mean, The Witch and The Lighthouse are definitely always going to be my favorites. I've seen The Northman once. I haven't really had an urge to watch it again. But if you haven't seen The Northman, I've talked about The Northman before. If you haven't seen The Northman, I would say give it a watch. It's actually really good. It's his only as far as like the first four, all these four films. It is the only non-horror film by Robert Eggers. But it does give like a good story. It has like a Hamlet like story, but it's weird because like the story that's of the Northman is actually the inspiration for Hamlet because there's this whole story going on. But like I said, go watch The Northman if you haven't. It's a really interesting movie. But yeah, and it's funny. Robert Eggers is the only director, as far as I know, who's worked with both Skarsgård brothers. Because Alexander Skarsgård was in The Northman, who is obviously the older brother of Bill Skarsgård. And not only that, Bill and Alexander Skarsgård are also the only types of brother actors I know that play the vampires. Because if anybody's a fan of True Blood like I am, we know that Alexander Skarsgård played a vampire called Eric Northman. I am not making this up. If y'all have never seen the show, that was the character's name, Eric Northman, and it's pretty much like the same character as he played in The Northman almost. But that's pretty much all I have for the Nosferatu Dracula side. So as if you can't tell, and I'm pretty sure y'all couldn't because we just rambled on a lot. We're kind of talking about books and movies, like of these old monster movies from like Universal, I think Dracula might have been was the first one, probably was the first one.
What were you mentioning how it was the first of the Universal monsters?
Was it the first of the Universal monsters? Like,
It was, yeah, it should have
okay,
been.
okay. We'll talk about the second one in the third segment because we'll definitely talk about something else in the second segment. So we're gonna go on break and don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back to the podcast. So what I forgot to mention was that like I can't really say much again anymore about Nosferatu because like I know there's been some Oscar contention. I can't say too much because by the time this episode gets released, the Oscar nominations are already going to be released. So to all I can say to the audience is in the matter of context. I predicted it. In any form of context, that works. I predicted it. As far as I can tell you, I hope the cinematography nomination actually happens. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the movie, cinematography wise, Chef's Kiss, that was perfect. But now we can talk about Wolfman. And we've been saying a lot of times. I think we've been saying it like it's one word, but it's actually two words. Wolfman. Yeah, it is a remake of the Wolfman from the original 1941 movie. This one was directed by Leigh Whannell, who we all know played Adam and Saw, the original Saw. He also co-wrote the movie with James Wan, who directed the first film. As soon as as soon as Leigh Whannell and James Wan left after the first movie, the Saw franchise kind of just did its own thing. But even though Leigh Whannell did come back a few times to play Adam again, he's actually a really good filmmaker. As for Wolfman, I won't give into spoilers on this one because even by the time I get this released, it's still kind of new. But let's just put it like this. Marketing kind of lies to you. That's all I can tell you. Marketing is lying to you. I sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say that.
There,
Marketing is lying to you.
there's more to it too, because I mean, with whatever marketing they gave us, because if you think about it, there was very little marketing at all. Like I don't even remember seeing it in posters, like in the highways when you drive and you see the billboards. I didn't see anything like that because usually there's movie posters sometimes, or if the movie posters now are posted on like the front of, oh sorry, on the side of buses. I didn't even see anything related to this film. So it seems like it's not only just that the marketing, whatever marketing we got, that was telling the audience like, hey, you're probably being lied to. There was barely any marketing.
Yeah, and I think that was a mixed aspect for me. Because the trailer shows you what you think is happening. I don't want to get into too much if you haven't seen the movie and you still want to see the movie. I don't know how long the movie's gonna be in theaters after this. There's things I
I give it
like.
a month.
What? A month?
Yeah, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. I think I'm giving it a month
All right. Well,
or 5 weeks.
yeah, it'll still. I mean, it'll be released before theaters decide. We'll just take it out. But well, that's what I'm hoping. But now that I'm jobless, I could still go back to the power of editing until I find another job. Sorry, Rishi, I'm not editing. I'm not having you edit this one. I can't afford you this episode, but still cool, man. Anyway, to my point, there are some things I liked about the movie. Cinematography wise, it was actually really good. There's a shot. This is the only spoiler I'll give you, but there's a shot of our characters like looking at like the mountains in Oregon, even though I think this is actually filmed in Canada. But the shot was actually really, really good. And even like our characters say, like, you can never get tired of this shot. But I think you mentioned there is an Easter egg about like the OG character of the original Wolfman. I think that's what you told me, or you saw something like that. Which for those who don't know, the character in the original Wolfman, and he's constantly played by the same actor, Lon Chaney Jr. If you don't know anything about Lon Chaney Sr., we'll talk about it later on. But Lon Chaney Jr. played the Wolfman in every incarnation of the movie, and his name is Talbot, and they kind of give a hint of a name Talbot in the remake. That's as far as the spoilers I can give you. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but even though like the Wolfman has no there was no book of Wolfman. Like Wolfman was Universal's own idea. There were obviously myths and like other folklores of werewolves and stuff like that. So where do we go from here? Well, Leigh Whannell directed The Invisible Man, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I love The Invisible Man. It's a lot more grounded than, well, I wouldn't say a lot more grounded, but it does give like a modern adapt or a modern telling of the OG adaptation. For those that don't know, The Invisible Man was written by H.G. Wells. For those that don't know, H.G. Wells not only did The Wolfman, he also did War of the Worlds, which Jesus and I actually read it back in high school. Which there was also a modern adaptation of it that came out 20 years ago. So not so modern, but 20 years ago that starred Tom Cruise, directed by Steven Spielberg. That's actually a really good movie. So if you want to check that out, I don't know where it's at, but you should go check it out. But that book was very anticlimactic. Wouldn't you agree though? If you've read the book, I know you knew that book was very anticlimactic when you read it.
Yeah, I mean everything is so spectacle. Everything about like what she was reading and like how it kept you in suspense and tension, and then it ends the way it is. You're like, oh, that's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. Basically, if you haven't read the War of the Worlds book, they're pretty much the aliens' immune system. cannot handle human diseases. So germs killed the aliens, and then they're like, "Nope, we're out of here." Which again, very anticlimactic. Even in the Tom Cruise movie, that's how it ended. But like I said, H.G. Wells wrote The Invisible Man, and I mean, obviously the book is a lot different from the modern adaptation that starred Elizabeth Moss. But it's also like the first time we've ever seen an adaptation that follows a woman's perspective of being scared. Because like The Invisible Man, the 2020 version obviously deals with domestic violence and then the fear of somebody who was very hands-on abusive on you, the fear of them coming to find you and stuff like that. That was pretty much no, yeah, but that's pretty much like what the adaptation was. But the book and big yes, I actually read most of these books, guys. I know it doesn't sound like I read, but here's the thing. These are actually my favorite kinds of books I love to read. But in the book, the character John Griffin creates a potion that turns him invisible, which is obviously something that they did again in the 1931 film of The Invisible Man. To this day, and if you haven't seen the 1930 no not 1931 1933 movie of The Invisible Man, bro, I don't know what kind of editing they did, but man, it is wild. I mean, I couldn't imagine being an audience member. You're seeing the character unwrap himself because in the book and in most adaptations, he's wrapped like a mummy. And then as soon as he unwraps himself, there's nothing. So I can't imagine like how the audience must have reacted to that.
And you
Um,
think about it, there's no CGI. Like that
yeah,
isn't CGI, and we're sitting here going, "What? Like, what do they do?" It's almost like we need to take, or sorry, not us. The studios need to take a lesson and go back and be like, "What did they do?" Because I mean, again, we rely so much on computer now. It just kind of makes it look kind of with a lot of stuff.
yeah,
So I mean, thankfully, if I can add something to these modern retellings,
yeah. Go ahead.
the best part about, again, you have a night and day. You ask yourself, first of all, I think we all owe an apology to whoever decided, whoever, whatever producer in Universal said, "Hey, why don't we make a modern retelling of the Mummy? Let's see how that goes." Like I think we owe them an apology because if it wasn't for them who decided, that must have been a good idea on paper, only to fail only to fail so hard, to the fact that they basically said, nope, we're not making this shared universe like Marvel or whatever kind of cinematic universe these studios are doing now. We're just gonna go our own separate stories. We would not have the Invisible Man. Like that is just peak 2020. Like I didn't think movies could actually be this good in this time period, and we had something like that come out before pre-pandemic, and then theaters closed. Like that's what, I'll be honest with you, that's one of the things I regret the most, is not actually going to see this film in theaters, because that would have just been amazing. Like first watch in there. But anyway, point is, those movies have low budgets. At least Blumhouse gave Lee this amount of money and said work with it. So he did. And with the amount of money they get, even with the small amount of CGI they included, it's perfectly done well. It's like but to me, that's believable. The computer that you see, like whatever the Invisible Man is, that is believable, man. Like I was sit here thinking, who knows? Maybe in 50 years we'll actually have technology that can actually make somebody invisible like that. Like that's what's freaky. And then with the recent iteration of the Wolfman, it's the same idea. Very little computer was used. You can tell a lot of it
Yeah.
was makeup effects and all that, and that was just amazing to see. So I mean, it works. It's just further proof that these films, and not just horror, because it's always horror. Horror seems to always get the short end of a stick in terms of budget, but that's the reason why we can keep coming back to these things, because horror does it so well with a low budget, and it's only proof, or should be proof, that all these other films, other genres, should go to a low budget standpoint.
Yeah, it's pretty much like True. I mean, like they never really made a shared universe, I think, until Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, which well, Frankenstein we're gonna talk about later on. I would say like the difference in the books as well as all other adaptations of The Invisible Man is that the character, the Invisible Man, John Griffin, that's what his name is. He never kills anybody in the book. Like, yes, he's psychotic in the book, and it's because I think from what I can remember, the chemicals that he uses to create himself invisible, it messes with his mind to where he doesn't even recognize who he is anymore. Like even though yeah, he's an invisible person, he's starting to become more deranged. And how it ends, how the book ends is basically like the mob somehow found him. Well, I wouldn't say somehow found him because remember, you may be invisible, but things are going to show you that you're there. So the book takes place around a time when it snows, so everyone was able to see the track, and they all like beat him up until he was dying, and when he's dying, that's when he started like becoming visible, and they could see him. But yeah, but that's not how they do it here in what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, they didn't do that in Leigh Whannell's version of the movie. He has like all these like mini cameras and stuff like that to where it's angled to where it starts making him invisible, and it's very scary how like if that technology can go into the wrong hands and make somebody like super psychotic to be invisible, to find and kill somebody. But as I mentioned before, in the book, he doesn't kill anybody. In the movie, in the original 1933 version, he sabotages a bunch of planes that kills, I think, over 100, not planes, trains, like a train that kills over 100 folks. It's very interesting, and it's funny because like the actor, I think his name is Claude Rain, if I could look it up. But as far as I can tell, I think he also played the dad in the original Wolfman, which I think we coming into a full circle. So hold on. The Invisible Man, 1933. Yeah, Claude Rains. I knew it. And he did, yeah, played the dad in the Wolfman. So we actually come into a full circle on this one. Yeah. Oh, he also played, I think yeah, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That has nothing to do with what we're saying. It's just that like Jesus and I saw a movie back in high school. I think it was like a I think it was like history class, and it was a movie called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and Claude Rain comes
Mhm.
out in that one. It's a really great movie. It has Jane Stewart in it from A Wonderful Life. It deals with like if you ever grew up with Schoolhouse Rock, if you knew that song, I'm just a bill, only a bill.
I'm
That's
something sitting on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, that's what the movie's pretty much about. It's about like how someone can make a bill into a law, but then it gets a lot more into the politics, which I would actually care for. I actually care for the politics that was happening around, I don't know, pre-2000. But Claude Rains plays like somebody who doesn't agree with this law and has given like he's really fighting back against Mr. Smith's law about Boy Scouts and stuff like that. That's pretty much what it is. I don't want to go into details. This is a little side tangent, but if you haven't seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I completely recommend it. It's a really good movie. It unfortunately came out in 1939, so obviously two movies that year stole its Oscar chances, Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. But it's still a good movie. Again, I recommend it. Let me see where where they could watch it. Oh, no, give me a second.
Last time it was available was on Netflix, but that was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, yeah, there's no way to watch it. It only says Google Play or Fandango at home. I don't know. Hopefully something good happens within the time I release this, but I highly doubt it. But if you somehow find it, maybe hopefully Criterion should have gotten that one, actually, because of a class. It's a
Yes,
classic.
honestly, that's something that myself and a lot of other people are waiting on. Eventually, it's
Really?
just I mean, it's probably on a backlist, possibly on a backlist of things that Criterion wants to do. So I mean, it's not off the real possibility that it won't end up being there. But I mean, it's just how copyright and all the legal mumbo jumbo it is to get rights to licensing before they can even announce something. So.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the whole thing. The Wolfman and um The Invisible Man. I have really good movies by Leigh Whannell. Obviously, I think everyone who's seen The Wolfman at this point and has seen The Invisible Man prefer The Invisible Man a lot more than Wolfman. Which again, there's things about Wolfman you can like and things you don't like. Obviously the wolf effects are actually very interesting in the movie if you haven't seen it. I mean, and like the only real remake like an actual remake of that movie was the one that had Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, which Anthony Hopkins also came out in the Gary Oldman version of Dracula, which I forgot to mention. He played Van Helsing in that movie, but Anthony Hopkins comes out in the Wolfman remake. The Wolfman remake of 2010 is more or less receivable than the recent remake, even though the Wolfman remake had not Sean Baker, what's his name again? Something Baker. Rick Baker, there you go. Rick Baker, very famous makeup artist, did the makeup for An American Werewolf in London. He was the very first recipient of that award, which is like little side note. We're going on a lot of side notes, which is sad because that the makeup category didn't exist until 1981 at the Oscars, which is sad because so many great makeup artists. The reason I'll put on this tangent and then we'll go back on track. But the reason why the makeup category exists was because the year before The Elephant Man didn't win any awards. It lost all the big awards. It lost Best Actor, Best Director, R.I.P. David Lynch, by the way. And Best Picture. It lost all those awards. People were upset that at that time there wasn't a makeup category because that definitely would have gotten the makeup award. That's the reason why there's the makeup category. But people should have been complaining long before that one because the fact that it took from 1929 to 1980 for there to be a makeup award. But also the fact that Rick Baker is the very first recipient, and like I said, Rick Baker is a very well respected makeup artist in the industry. The fact that he's the first recipient is actually it's lukewarm that he's the first recipient, but also that category should have existed long before then. But that's pretty much my 2 cents on that one. I thought you were gonna say
Um,
something.
I was, and I guess I mean, this is probably news to you now, but or to some people, but I can see why I can see why the reactions to this film, at least the recent iteration of Wolfman, were mixed because believe it or not, Rick Baker was meant to be in this film
Oh
to
wow.
provide the same amount of the same amount of makeup and stuff, and as things go, according to wherever you get your information from. I mean, I had gotten this from like I guess an interview from somebody that basically had interviewed him. So again, this is probably all fake, but anyway, take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, he was introducing the concepts for this iteration of Wolfman, and one of the executives or studio heads basically told him, "Okay, why do you need so much hair?" Sorry, I don't mean to be.
Yeah.
That's probably y'all's second spoiler. I apologize, but I mean the fact is he was saying something like, "Why do y'all need so much hair?" And he was like, "So you're trying to tell me you want like this is what you're asking for, right?" He basically said there was the poster of the Wolfman, right? He's pointing at. He said, "This is what you're asking. No, this is what you want, Wolfman." And then he covers his hand on the wolf and he says, "This is what you're asking." And if you make it make sense, they're asking for a man, not asking for a wolf man. So it's like even then they're still complaining about it, and obviously studio mismanagement continues to do what it needs to do to not make a film like this reach its like full potential. So I think according to that, he basically said, "I'm out." So he was supposed to be in here, but I think that didn't happen. Overall, it's still a great film.
Yeah.
Watch it for yourselves. Don't listen to what other people tell you, like the reviews and stuff. If you feel like you want to go watch this film, give it a watch. Gilbert and I left the theater saying this is actually pretty good. I don't know why people are complaining about it.
Yeah, yeah, but and it's weird because I said I actually prefer this a little bit more than Nosferatu, which I actually still do. I need to give both a rewatch because I think Nosferatu is still in theater, so I have time off my hands. Once this Texas freeze is over, I might watch it before they take it down. But I want to give both a rewatch, and maybe if my perspectives might change, it may or may not. But. I remember you were telling me that like if the Mummy from 2017 was not a failure, how different like all this would have been. Because remember, they've already had like ideas for the Dark Universe, is what they call it, the Dark Universe, and they've had actors to play like all these characters. I think Ryan Gosling was supposed to be the Wolfman, and Johnny Depp, I believe, was supposed to play the Invisible Man, which actually would have been a good idea because Johnny Depp is a really good actor. I mean, pretty much everybody knows that, but it would have been interesting on how they perspected it. But like you said, but like we've said, the Mummy 2017 was a huge failure. And they had I don't understand this to be honest with you. That movie had the Mummy had Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which it's weird. to already like put a character like that into the Mummy. And I
Let's
love
put it
Dr.
this way.
Jekyll. What?
Yes, we like you and I literally have a great fascination with Dr. Jekyll Hyde. It's
Yes.
like I'm still waiting for that. I don't know if Universal will even attempt to do it, but like I'm just saying like that has to be done. Side note. But the thing is, I mean, if you look at it this way, they were trying to find their quote unquote um wow, I'm really drawing a blank here. They were trying to give us their quote unquote I'm sorry, I haven't watched Marvel in years.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to really, really remember, but it's drawing a blank on me now.
Like
So
shared universe is what you're trying to say, or
yes, but like you know how at the end of Iron Man we have
oh,
our first
post
introduction
credit
post
scene.
credit. So I
Yeah.
mean, even though uh Dr. Jekyll in this film isn't really like in a post credit scene. It's just he's supposed to be our oh man, I cannot believe this. Okay, so whatever. Just like how Sam Jackson tells
Oh, like the Nick
whatever, I'm putting
Fury.
together a team.
Yeah.
That's literally what they were doing. That was their ace in the hole.
Yeah. Actually, we could actually talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because it's one of my favorite books. I didn't know if we were ever actually going to be able to even talk about it because, like I said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of my favorite books. We read this in high school. There's a musical that has yet to be made called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the musical. There is a recorded version out there that has David Hasselhoff. Yes, I'm saying that right. The David Hasselhoff. He does get a lot of flack because he's not very like a very Broadway singer, per se. But it's actually really interesting. That movie's been in development hell since 2010. Their idea was to release it in 2015, and then no studio, for some reason, decided to make it, or not really like that. It's more like we're gonna make this movie in 2017, and then nobody just does nothing for 5 years or 2015, sorry. And then one of the writers of Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, he wrote a script for it, and they've been trying to get it produced. So far, it's been cold. We don't know anything. The only thing we know is that like they wanted to get it done, but then COVID was one of the other features of why it hasn't been done yet. But that's the one movie that I was like, man, they're never gonna make this, and if they do, they better not mess this up because I like that musical. It's a lot different from the book because if you've ever read the book is not in the perspective of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but in the perspective of Dr. Jekyll's lawyer, John Utterson. How do you say this? Like we're not introduced to the fact that Jekyll becomes Hyde until the end of the book, which obviously you can't do anymore because everybody kind of already knows the story. But because it's sad because that can only work once. You get what I mean? Like when you read it, you're like, yeah, you can't like surprise anybody anymore because everybody knows now. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are the same folks. But maybe you could still put into perspective of John Utterson, which is again the character that we are introduced in the beginning of the book. I guess if I could get the abridged version, but if you really want to know a abridged version of these books, I recommend, and it's just for the fun of it, I recommend watching Doug Notes. Doug Notes, just for a side note, is a YouTube series on I forgot what the channel's called, but it's a YouTube series where like this black guy I feel awkward just saying it like that now. But he's dressed like a gangster. Like I'm talking like do-rag, chains, white beater. But he sounds like a rapper too, like not two chains, Flavor Flav. And like he sounds like that, but he's talking about classic literature. It's just for the fun of it. So if you ever want to check that out, please do so. It's a very fun series. But the unabridged version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is basically John Utterson is trying to discover random character named Mr. Hyde that nobody knows. Like his cousin blackmails this Mr. Hyde character for running over, or not running over, for walking over some little girl for being in her way. And they mention how there's a signature that kind of resembles Dr. Jekyll, which is a client of John Utterson. And then things start to unfold to where they realize that Jekyll and Hyde are the same person. And then the last chapter of the book is a diary of Henry Jekyll saying like he wanted to change his personalities and he took a vial of serum that changes him to Hyde. And he enjoys like the feeling of Hyde, but he realizes that Hyde now takes control. And there are times where like Jekyll turns into Hyde without even taking the serum. He could take the he it started off when he was just asleep, and then it ends to where like he's starting to turn into Hyde even when he was awake, like out of nowhere. I mean, like I said, read that book. It's very interesting, and just read books in general because nobody reads well nowadays. Yeah, that's a like I said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is actually one of my favorite books. There was a movie called that came out in 1931. I guess you could say like the first horror-esque movie to win an Academy Award, because it won Best Actor. And I'll tell you right now that um, if any if Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde the musical becomes a movie and it's successful and everybody loves whoever they cast to play him, that he can sing as two different characters, that person's gonna win the Oscar. No doubt about that. That's if they find the good actor who can play both Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Oh man, I don't think I have that book anymore. Do you have the book still?
No, I don't think I do.
Yeah. It was a good book. I'm not gonna lie, man. Very short, guys. A very short book. Like you could literally read that in a day if you got nothing to do. But anyway, we're gonna take another quick break right now, probably our last break of the episode, and then we're gonna talk about actually my personal favorite book. Yeah, don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back to the podcast. Now we're gonna talk about something that it hasn't been released yet, but it's supposed to be released next year. There's two. It's the same story, but two different movies. So Maggie Gyllenhaal, I believe, and Guillermo del Toro are releasing two different Frankenstein movies this coming year. Maggie Gyllenhaal is doing the story of the Bride of Frankenstein, but Guillermo del Toro is doing the actual like the legit adaptation of Frankenstein, which I am super, super excited because I love the book, Frankenstein. When it was our senior year in high school and we were required to read Frankenstein. And I really liked that book. I thought it was a very very interesting book. Obviously, if you've never read the book, we pretty much know that like Frankenstein is not the name of the monster. The name of the monster is not really, he doesn't really have a name. He's usually referred to as Frankenstein's monster, the creature. Frankenstein is the doctor. And it's different. Like the original 1931 film is a lot different from the book because, like, and by a lot different, I mean, like, there's really nothing similar. Because, like, I mean, Boris Karloff is obviously famously well known for playing, Frankenstein, but, he's also, most people don't even know this. Boris Karloff also voiced, the Grinch in the original, 1964. I don't remember. He voiced the Grinch, just put it like that. And, but anyway, Boris Karloff, obviously famous for playing Frankenstein. That movie is not like the book at all. Like the only thing it just shares is really the name Frankenstein, but it has a similar concept, which is a guy who wanted to create life out of dead matter and thus for created a creature. But the thing is that like man, how do you put this? Frankenstein's obsession with life and wanting to play God takes a dark turn in both cases. So the original book by Mary Shelley, he's not Frankenstein hates his creature. Let's put it like that. He hated his creation. One day he created something just out of not physics. He made it out of pure chemistry. And after he created it, he saw how disturbing and scary it looked that he was just like, I cannot believe that this is something that I should not have created. And when he abandoned the creature doesn't know what he is. He doesn't know who he is. He wakes up and then like the one person he sees that could give him the answers to what it is abandons him. So he has to learn things by himself. Like I don't want to spoil too much of the book because it's a really interesting book. Like I said, you guys got to read something. Frankenstein is still a book I have. I actually should have gotten this before I started the podcast, but Frankenstein is a very good book. It's a lot different. And as far as I know, Guillermo del Toro is wanting to do the actual adaptation of the book. The last person to do that was Kenneth Branagh when he did his version of Frankenstein. And he had Robert De Niro of all people play the monster. What I told Seuss when we were coming back from watching Wolfman is that, whatever trailer or marketing uses that they're gonna have for Frankenstein, I hope Guillermo del Toro takes a page out of Robert Eggers' book and not show us the monster. Because I would like to be surprised to know what the monster looks like. Like making sure nobody leaks the photos and stuff like that. Because as I was surprised to see how Orlok looks, I want to be surprised of how the monster looks. The monster is the key, obviously it's the key feature of, this story because let's put it this way, the monster is a tragedy. That's how I should put it. The monster is a tragedy because he doesn't know what he is. He just knows aggression and hate and violence. I love this book, and Jesus, I know. I mean, when we first read it, I know you enjoyed it, didn't you?
Absolutely, man. It was a great book.
Yeah, it's a classic, guys. Read it. It's amazing. There's so much character analysis of the creature and Frankenstein himself. But the Bride of Frankenstein comes from a small segment of a chapter where the creature demanded Frankenstein to create him a bride, and he promised Frankenstein if you create him, I won't ever bother you again. But the bride never really was created. Like you get what I mean? Like he was in the process of creating the bride, but Frankenstein thought if these two are together, what if they produce like a kind such as them? And it's something that he cannot handle. So he destroyed the creation. I don't want to get too much into the book. I love the book. I don't want to tell you guys what happened. I just want y'all to read it because the creature, I love this book, guys. You can tell. You know what? I'm just gonna cut off from there. Go read the book. You gotta read it for yourself. And basically read in general. Like I said before, read in general. Nobody's reading anything nowadays.
I will say this: it's one of the books that I keep as a teacher. I keep in my bookshelf. I mean, a lot of us teachers actually like have bookshelves that we leave so that some kids are able to read a book if they want to. That was one of the things I had to make sure that it was in there. So it's there. It's like I tell the kids if there's one book any kid has ever asked me to recommend, like they ask what do you recommend, I'll always point them to that because that's just like it's just amazing.
But I have no doubt Guillermo del Toro, I have no doubt he's not gonna make a good job. He's gonna make a good job of this one. And Frankenstein is literally like the reason why he became a filmmaker. That and kaiju films. I know he's a fan of what's that one robot kaiju keeps showing me?
You mean Ultraman?
But he's a fan of a lot of kaiju films. He actually had the full collection of them. But yeah, I am a bit curious on like the Maggie Gyllenhaal version of the Bright. I mean, there's a photo of Christian Bale who's playing the monster. Yeah, no, I really think you guys should read the book before this movie comes out. I might actually do that before the movie comes out. Though, if I was to make a Frankenstein movie myself, I would have Bill Skarsgård play the creature. Even though yes, he already played Count Orlok, but I mean, why not? I think Bill Skarsgård could do good as the creature.
Why not? I mean, you had Bela Lugosi playing Dracula and then literally playing Frankenstein's assistant Igor in like other
Oh wow.
films. So I mean
Yeah.
that yeah, who wouldn't want to see Bill Skarsgård play another monster?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny though, because Bill Skarsgård says like I wouldn't want to play something evil like no like Count Orlok again, and everyone who's seen that is like you played Pennywise. That's to me seems more evil than Count Orlok. I mean, these are classics, and they still continue to be made to this day, which like it's just like blows my mind. I mean, like The Hunchback and Phantom of the Opera. We're gonna get. I'll talk a little bit about them because we're running out of time here. But both were played by Lon Chaney in the 20s. Their pictures are pretty much well known. But those books are obviously those movies are actually similar to the books. Though The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a lot more tragic. Well, even no, both of them, The Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback, are tragic. I know Kenny Ortega, who we all know as the director of the High School Musical, wants to do like the Phantom of the Opera. Not a lot of people enjoyed the Gerard Butler version and wanted to do his version. I just want to see how that goes. But if he is doing the musical adaptation of the Phantom of the Opera, then Kenny Ortega cannot mess this up because this is a very popular musical, and he needs to find the right casting, and not just who can look the part, but who can sing the part. Because like when it comes to Broadway musicals and their actors, their voices have to have like a range for the music. So he cannot mess that up. If I ever see something where like Kenny Ortega hired I don't know Ryan Gosling to play the Phantom, I'd be like, well, I'm not watching this movie because that is not a good role or not actor to play the Phantom. And I'm not saying anything bad about Ryan Gosling, by the way. I'm just saying like you have like if you were supposed to do these movies, especially if it's a musical, you have to know like can this person actually do the range? And Ryan Gosling can sing, but his range cannot be in the same range as the Phantom of the Opera. And I know some people are saying like, would Robert Eggers do the Phantom of the Opera? Not the musical, but like just in the book in general. But Nosferatu was kind of like that already. And then The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Disney doesn't know if they're going to remake that movie. If they did, we all know that one song, We Want to Be There, but it's Disney. They're probably not going to do it. I mean, I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Victor Hugo's books, if you've never read them, are like the size of paperweights. No, not the size of paperweights. They're like the weight of paperweights. They are heavy. They are thick. He puts like details into everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you ever read a Victor Hugo book like Les Miserables or The Hunchback of Notre Dame, there's a lot more details within everything. But these like monster flicks, I mean, they're everywhere. Hotel Transylvania, Van Helsing, which I think is like the first movie I ever saw that featured most of these classics. Guillermo del Toro, of course, did The Shape of Water, which is kind of a resemblance of the creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know if we're gonna get ever a remake of that or not. I think we were supposed to, but it never happened.
I hope
But
one day.
yeah, I hope one day. I guess for the last minute, I'll say it. I was writing a book and I never got it published, and I think I might. Maybe one day I will. Probably, I don't know if it's this year or the next year. But since 2017, I wrote a book about those people, about those creatures. I came up with the idea back like 2014, 2015, because I figured somebody is already going to release these. That was just what my mind says. It's been almost 10 years, guys, and nobody's ever done this. And I better get this published before somebody steals my idea. But I was just surprised. I've handwritten it. I've got it typed out. I was going to get it published, guys. I was, but then COVID happened that prevented it. And then life just happens. And you know what? I'm gonna make an effort. I'm gonna get it. Jesus has read some of it. He's
Can I
actually
just
helped.
say it's probably one of the best stuff I've actually read.
Yeah, yeah.
And like
He's helped proofread it. I do thank you for reading that. But yeah, guys, watch some of these flicks. Like watch the old monster flick. I'm excited for the two Frankenstein adaptations, but really just the Guillermo del Toro adaptation. I can't wait to see what goes from there, man. I want to see more of like Jekyll and Hyde and more of Dracula, a better Dracula story. We haven't actually had that in a long time since like
since literally Bela Lugosi's. I mean, I'm just kidding. Since Bram Stoker's Dracula from Francis
yeah.
Ford Coppola is probably like the only good one. At like, but besides, I mean, other people will tell you, right? But yeah,
Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for sticking around. Season three. Now we're starting back up. We got more. We got another episode coming in next week. It's supposed to be our Samurai Jack episode. I'm excited for that one. Hope you guys have a great night, day, morning, whenever you're listening to this. Y'all take care.